Hello and welcome to Embedded. I'm Alicia White alongside Christopher White. This week we have the Toymakers Addie and Whisker on the show. They've done so many amazing things, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Maybe electronics, conference badges, Tindie, zombies, could be anything.
Hi, Addie and Whisker. It's very exciting to have you today.
Hi.
Addie, could you tell us about yourself and Toymakers?
Sure. So I'm Addie. I'm by day, I'm a nurse researcher, and by night, I'm a toy maker with Whisker. And we're a couple in Rochester, Minnesota, and we do all sorts of projects with electronics, like conference badges and kits for Tindie. And we do woodworking projects, music, just a little bit of everything.
And Whisker, what would you like to add?
I mostly just, try to keep the to-do list under control. When you have as many sort of interests and directions as we do, it gets a little bit overwhelming. And being the full-time member of the operation, it's sort of up to me to make sure that things don't go totally off the rails, I guess.
I don't know. From the rumors I have heard, it's usually off the rails.
It's only when you want it to be off the rails. It's intentional.
Which is all the time.
Let's go straight to lightning round.
Straight to lightning round.
Sure.
Why don't you start, Chris?
All right. Preferred voltage.
3.3 for me.
Yeah, I like that negative 90 volts and 0. That's fun.
Technical tip everyone should know.
Time your breathing when soldering so that you don't breathe in flux fumes.
It's a good one.
Life is just a series of being one cable short from everything working well.
Do you prefer to complete one project with focus or start a dozen and let the best project win?
No comment.
We do both. But I'm more serial than Whisker is. He's definitely the parallel guy.
Yeah, I can't concentrate on one thing for more than a day.
See, I have to get it done, so.
Favorite fiction, movie, book, whatever fiction you've encountered for the first time in the last year?
A very good question. Can I change it to a series?
Sure.
Black Mirror, huge fan.
You'd think this was nonfiction, but the Mitel SX200 Technician's Handbook. Yeah.
All right, I need to know more about that.
What's
like now?
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, right now.
Oh, I'm trying to revive a 90s era PBX, and let's put it this way, the manual is not what I would consider to be nonfiction.
Okay.
Favorite musical instrument?
Viola.
Oh gosh, probably my Commodore 64.
And the last one, best dumpling filling.
Okay, let's make this very clearly. Dumplings are not round balls of dough. That is not what a dumpling is. Dumplings are, they got stuff in them. So best one is ground pork, Chinese chives, ginger, garlic, and a splash of sesame oil.
And that I totally defer to her on that because she is the expert.
Boom.
Is a ravioli a dumpling?
Oh, that's a good question. It's closest thing, I think.
This is going to be like, is it a sandwich, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we're going to do dumplings? Okay.
Is it a dumpling?
Sorry, go on. Addie.
Italian dumpling, I guess you could call it. I mean, sure. It's more so than like those, chicken and dumplings. That's like a bait and switch, right? You think, oh man, I'm going to get something in this dumpling. No.
Just dough
It's
balls.
just a ball of dough. Right. Exactly.
Kind of raw,
Anybody,
too.
Right? Anybody can do that. It's mushy. It's funky. Yeah. So, no, Chinese dumplings all the way.
So I was going to ask, is a calzone a dumpling?
No, that's a sandwich.
No, that's huge. That's in its own category.
Okay.
What?
Now I have
Off
all
the
sorts of
rails.
questions about dumplings. Badges, though. You have just finished making these incredible badges that are also boxes that light up, and they're just really neat. But maybe I should let you tell me about them?
Sure. So the badge that we made, we just finished in end of March, was for a conference, CypherCon, which is essentially a hacker conference for Wisconsin hackers, although I'm hoping that it'll go to like the Midwest. But essentially the cube, the theme was fringe science. And so we had to come up with a badge that embodied this idea. And we're like, all right, well, what's fringy? How do you do that, right? We could make crystals. We could make, I don't know, something weird like jellyfish or something fringy.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah. But then we were like, so we got into crystals and we're like, that'd be cool. But I can't imagine a bunch of bearded hackers wanting to wear crystals around their neck. Right? Unless they're hippies. And so we're like, well, we can keep the 3D shape.
Yeah, the idea of attaching facets of a crystal together out of PCBs sort of is where the three-dimensionality of it came in. Right. But then we thought about, manufacturing that is going to be no fun. So it's going to be a cube. All the sides are going to be the same because that's easier.
Right. And so we thought, okay, well, that's cool. Like, it's a cube. What does this cube do? Obviously, you need to have LEDs and you need to make it glow and make it pretty. But I am a huge fan of LEDs having information, right? So they're not just showy for showy's sake. And so we're like, well, we could make it like Conway's Game of Life. We could put that on the outside. But like other badges have done that. So what can we do? And we thought, well, why don't we make it like a map? And we're like, well, what's a map to what? And so Whisker was essentially suggested a text adventure game. And so we're like, okay, all right, we can do a text adventure game. Well, what's the goal of this text adventure game then? And he was like, well, why don't we, have them fix a computer or something? And so, okay, you can fix a computer and then everybody's happy. They've fixed this computer in the course of a half an hour. Now what? And I'm like, well, if you're going to have a computer in this game, then you might as well be able to use it. Right? And if you can use the computer in the game...
I got to interrupt you because you're telling it completely backwards.
Oh, come on. Okay, go ahead.
We have a cube. You can hook it up to your USB port on your laptop, your phone, whatever, and you get sort of a text interface, right? So I was rolling a text-based, time-sharing operating system on it, and I had to design some applications that ran on the thing. And, of course, the first application anybody's going to want is going to be like Adventure or Zork or something like that because it's super fun. But at some point in making that happen, it clicked in my head that you can reverse the idea there. So it starts with the text adventure, and in the text adventure, you fix the computer, and then you're in the computer and you can use the computer. And once you're on the computer, you've got infrared transceivers on both sides of your badge, and it's in constant communication with everyone else's badge. So once you're logged into the time-sharing operating system on your badge, you can hack into the time-sharing system on the badge next to you, and then from that one into the next one down the row. Just think of a bunch of hackers sitting at a conference watching a talk, and somebody's hacking their way down into the aisle, right?
Yep.
It's fun.
That's wow.
Okay. Yeah, so it was a feature
ambitious.
Creep on feature creep. And so we were like, well, if you can play with a computer, then you might as well play with other people's computers. And this is a hacking conference, so if hackers can't hack into other people's badges, well, then who can, right?
Well,
so
wait a minute. Given that it is a hackers conference,
yes,
I don't know that I would plug anything anybody gave to me into my computer's USB port.
Yes, that is a very good point. And that was definitely a concern. So we set up a terminal actually at our table for people to try it, to decide whether or not they wanted to plug it into their own computers.
Yeah, I brought a 1980 green phosphor Apple monitor and a IBM clicky, Model M keyboard, and they could plug their badges in right there. It was running on a Raspberry Pi, right? So, of course, the hackers, a lot of them were using it to play with their badge, but it's a hacker conference. So as soon as we went to go give a presentation at the conference, we came back and the hackers had hacked the Raspberry Pi.
So I think after the hackers realized that we weren't going to put anything malicious on their computers, they were more willing to play around with it.
A simple internet search, and pretty much anybody trusts us to go into places we're not supposed to or to plug things into their computer. It's pretty obvious that we're harmless.
How long did this take from concept to having a finished one? I mean, it sounds really fairly complicated. This is not, we got some LEDs and we're going to blink them, or we have an LCD display and, Donkey Kong's on the badge.
No, RFID with my personal information that you can sell to vendors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think the initial crystal talk was in June.
The node to node talk was, we went out to Mater's, cool German restaurant in Milwaukee, on day 2 of the conference the year before. And over lunch, Spatzel and, good German food, Addie and I were talking about the node to node jumping idea. So it really started about a year before we delivered it.
But in earnest, I think the programming started in October. I think
it's
so.
All a blur.
Yeah, I think around October, November is when we started all of the actual intense work. And we had to deliver it end of March. So
Addie does all of the procurement of the parts and dealing with the PCB fab and doing the final routing of the boards and plotting the Gerbers and all that sort of stuff. And I do the artwork and a lot of the code. And for this project, we brought on Peter to help with PIC code because he's a PIC guru guy. We actually had 2 processors on there to be able to do it. For me, it was Addie chained me to my desk for 6 months because I had to develop a time-sharing operating system and a suite of applications in it. And I only had 3K longs of memory to do it in for program space and, operating RAM, which is no small task. So she'd just walk by occasionally and beat me.
And how did they communicate?
The processor to processor or the node to node?
The node to node.
So Peter did the PIC, and we picked a particular PIC that had 2 IRDA hardware, drivers in it, and so we've got a RX and TX module pointing one left and one right out of the side of the cube, and he just cooked up a little simple protocol that allowed them to detect when each other are around and pass bytes between. And once a byte comes in, it sits in the buffer on the PIC, and the PIC presents it to my processor on an I2C register. And I'm just sitting there polling it, waiting for bytes to come in. Then I parse them and do the routing and pass them back out through.
Okay, what about the processor to processor then?
So that's all I2C, and it's just this massive wall of I2C registers that I would use to, tell the PIC I need to do this or what's the status of that. Because the PIC could do things like monitor the battery voltage for me. It was a soft power switch, so the core processor could tell the external processor to reboot the system, which is pretty funny in the text adventure. There's a table with a hypercube sitting on it, and if you pick it up and play with it, the badge actually shuts off because you've broken the space-time continuum, stuff like that.
you intended these to be hacked. I mean, not only was there in the game play as part of the hacking and getting onto this timeshare system, but did you expect the hardware to be hacked or just the software?
Absolutely. Yeah, the hardware was definitely expected to be hacked. We already knew from doing badges for this conference previously that there were some hardware hackers in attendance that brought tools with them. So we knew that that was a major possibility. And let me tell you, it is difficult and somewhat nerve-wracking to design a product from scratch on a good day to a normal client. But when your client is 400 nefarious, evil hackers who you know are going to beat on it and take it apart the day they get it and try to break it, it makes it so much more stressful. So I was sort of stuck with the job of walking up and down the hallway and informing people what they could do with the thing, because it's such a big, concept, and it sort of needs a few seeds planted in the audience to make sure that, they get what's going on. And there was about 4 kids, like college kids, camped out in an alcove. They had found an outlet, and they had a soldering iron. They had a pile of Arduinos and laptops, and they had taken apart their cube fully. And they had bodge wires and, little probes attached all over the circuit. And it was hooked up to an Arduino to their laptop. And I walked up and I looked over their shoulder and I asked the kid, you trying to dump my EEPROM, are you? And they're like, yeah, but it's not working very well. I'm like, well, those processors are talking to each other over the same I2C bus that the EEPROM uses to, get the program into the processor initially. And the look on the kid's face when he realized that all the stuff that he was getting was just noise from the processors pulling. It's great.
So people did hack at them at the conference. I wondered, it seems like such a big thing that, and you're at a conference, so I presume you're there to see speakers and stuff. But people really do this at conferences? I must go to really boring conferences.
I think it depends. You're always going to have that contingent who decides that their mission is to mess with the badge during the conference. Like the goal for them is that badge. And these particular students were the only ones actually that managed to solve the cipher from last year's CypherCon badge. So, and that's actually... that informed our development for this particular badge. So let me back up a little bit. Our first badge for CypherCon was an XOR stream cipher. Is that
implemented in 7400 logic?
Right,
of course.
You're right.
Duh.
And Whisker had created a 3-bit encoding schema. And so we were like, oh man, this is our first hacker conference for me and Whisker, and we're going to see people hacking this and figuring out the ciphers, and it's going to be amazing. Of the, 200, 300 some people, most of the hackers were like, oh, is our goal just to turn on all the lights?
No.
And it's like, no, that's no. Why would we? That's so stupid. We made it more challenging than that. Come on, hackers.
How dare you?
Don't disappoint me, right? And it just so happened that these 3 or 4 students were the only ones who figured it out. And so we were like, oh my goodness, we are making our badge for you next year. This, all of our brain power is just going to be to make you guys, challenge you guys. And one of the things that they had mentioned in the first conference was, man, if you guys had been super tricky and put a puzzle within a puzzle, that would have just really gotten us, and it would have made it that much more fun. And we're like, challenge accepted.
So this year's badge, one of the applications on the time-sharing operating system, was a software simulation of the previous year's badge.
Oh my God. Well, now you set a precedent.
Yep. And so for this year, what we realized was that there are different levels of people, right? There are different, some people will just want it to be easy, blinky. They just want the pretty. And then some people will want the puzzles. And so for so this particular badge had, I want to say, 4 different levels?
Yeah, 4 or 5 tiers, I'd say.
4 or 5 tiers of enjoyment. So the first is just, it's pretty. It looks nice. The LEDs are flashing.
Really was pretty. I mean, not just the LEDs, but the way the LEDs interacted and how they went, and the design of the PCBs. There was a lot of pretty to it.
Can I just say
thank you?
And thank you. One, thank you. Two, not too many people know, but there was only one board with vias on that cube. All of the other sides don't have traces or vias to the outside, like to the outer layer. So all the traces had to be on one side, and
that's a new kind of routing problem.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I need that metal as an extra layer for my art, right? I mean, why waste it on electricity when you can use it for art?
Right. So
well, and they were going around people's necks, so there was the chance that they would touch. I don't know.
Right.
You didn't want to electrocute the people who were trying to use your things.
Very true.
Even if they're hackers, you still don't want to electrocute them.
You didn't solve my puzzle. Electrocuted.
Zap, zap, zap.
So the first was the LEDs. The second tier was the game, right? Because that's, once you get into the game, it makes sense. You're like, oh, okay, I gotta walk around here, not die from acid poisoning. Yeah, no problem. And the third layer would be getting into the actual computer, correct? And using the operating system.
Yeah.
And the operating system is not, for a complete lay person who doesn't do computers, they don't know what any of these items necessarily do, right? And they may be intimidated.
I think the one I saw people play with most, the feature in the OS part of it, was the ability to set up the color of their badge.
Right.
So one of the applications in there, you could set, the color and animation patterns on the LEDs.
Right.
That was the popular one for them.
And then the next tier, of course, would be hacking into another person's badge, because in order to hack into another person's badge and to actually change colors on their system, and all that, is to gain root. But to gain root, you have to learn how to use the low-level programming language that Whisker came up with called Tis But a Scratch. And it was largely based off of brain and beep. And so what was it? Didn't you say there was somebody there who had worked on the development of that language?
Somebody had done a compiler for it. So they were pleased to see an implementation of a very similar language in the badge. And, with a lot of these things, the ability to hack in and get root on a game-ish system like this is too fake and gamified. Right. And I opted instead to actually put an interpreter in the operating system that you could write your own programs for, but build in a problem with it, a subtle problem with it, that if anyone who was a security expert looked at like the man file for this thing, they would spot it and go, oh, I see. If I do this, then I can escalate my privileges and go forward and conquer.
Yeah. But the guy, so the guy who had made was it the interpreter or compiler, Whisker, for brain was like, oh my gosh, you actually made this language usable.
Yeah. I don't know if either of you have ever used esoteric programming languages, but TBAS only has 8 operators in the whole language. And to do anything useful with a language that simple is basically you wouldn't want to.
Right.
It would hurt you. Even with like compilers to help you out or whatnot, it would still stink. And I made some slight changes to the language that I'm sure anybody in like a computer science department would look at and say, I want to write a paper about the possibilities of what you could do now with that. Just sort of a clever little thing. And, it was fun seeing one of the developers for one of the compilers related to it noticed it and was like, dude, it made me feel happy.
Yeah.
Did people get all the way to this? I mean, did you have to help them? how deep did people get on their own, and how many talks did they miss?
Well, I've been to 2 CypherCons, and I haven't seen a single talk.
Except for our own. So I mean, actually beyond just getting into another person's computer,
Right.
there is also the woods, which I have not even gotten into, and the Panopticon.
Yeah, the woods drove everybody nuts. In the text adventure, you're in a missile silo, and it's sort of like a bunker, and there's this big like sealed metal door that you can't open, and there's like clues on it, written on it, and people were just obsessed with figuring out how to get this door open, and it turns out you get it open from the outside going in, but to get into that, you have to attach to the badge using a special USB cable at a special serial speed, special parity, etc., because the PIC is smart enough to be able to detect what kind of cable you're using, what speed you're connecting at. And then once you get in that far, there's a whole series of puzzles and things that you got to solve to open that door.
Did anybody figure this out? This just seems a little too hard.
One person?
Yeah, I think there was at least, I remember
2.
that one guy. For sure, because that's all he did for day 2. He would just walk up to the table. He'd ask Peter for any clues or hints or whatever. Peter would say something, grin, and then the guy would just get this sort of dejected look and run back to his corner and start hacking some more.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to streamline interviewing. You just take a cube like this, something like this, you throw it at the candidate, and you come back in 3 hours. And if they haven't figured anything out, then okay, move on.
I had an interview with potential clients, and they handed over their device, and I pulled out a screwdriver, and they got a look of horror on their faces. Like, that wasn't what I intended.
Well, how else am I supposed to do what I'm supposed to do?
I was going to ask how was this received as you expected, but it sounds like, given that people went as deeply as they did, that the answer is yes. But was this received like you expected?
So there is a little bit of a delay in registration, and so we weren't able to give our presentation at the very beginning. And so a lot of people, so part of the cube had a social flag feature, which is you could press a button, aim at your badge at another person's badge, and it would light up. So it was kind of like a ticker almost, where or a counter where it would say, "Oh, okay, like you've given me a flag," and that would count towards points towards the whole conference, like competition. And so a lot of for the most of day 1, that's what people thought this did. That it was just a little social flag. Oh, hey, hello, like let me throw a flag at you, you throw a flag at me. Now we're buddies. La-di-da, move on. After the second day's keynote, we were able to show our video. And after the video happened, it pretty much went crazy from there. People were like, wait a minute. There is more to this badge than just a social flag thing. Like, that is not even the point of this badge. So then a lot of people started, I guess, skipping talks to play with the badge and to ask us questions and all that. So yeah, it was quite nicely received.
If you'd gone back in time and handed this to me in 1982, I think it would have occupied me for 5 years. It would have been like my computer.
But the thing with just having one is it's not nearly as much fun. You have to have a handful.
That's true. It's true. And the one of the coolest features actually was relay. And essentially, if, for instance, you're logged into my badge and Whisker's logged into my badge, then the 3 of us can talk to each other. So I guess we kind of made like a little internet.
Yeah. Like circa 1978 internet, but internet.
Better than that.
Do you have plans for next year's badge?
I ain't saying nothing to you. What's this?
It's a dodecahedron.
Tetrahedron, I think, would be very pretty. But the boards should be clear.
So we do have plans, and whenever you do another badge, you always have to think about how you're going to outdo yourself.
Yeah, I think you might have set the bar a little on the high side.
So outdoing this one is, you wouldn't be able to go in the same path per se. But I think our next year's badge is actually going to be on par. If we can get it, all the parts working correctly, then I think it might be on par.
We did give you the electroshock idea, so make sure that...
Yeah, that's true.
That's honestly not as bad as some of the suggestions that came up on those last days of working on firmware, Peter and I. Because it has a giant LiPo on the inside of the cube. We were like, I wonder if we could pulse that and get it to catch on fire on purpose.
Oh my gosh.
That's the next tier.
Mission Impossible style. Don't type wrong. Is this a job, a hobby, both? I mean, this is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a product. That's a whole. That's a complicated.
You could sell this as a product.
Yeah, I'd buy several.
Oh, thanks. I would say it's both.
For me, at this point, it's well past a normal full-time job. Most people work their 40. I don't get to do that anymore. It's more 60 hours or more every week on Toymaker stuff. So. Yeah.
But there is a certain satisfaction in going from concept to product in such a short time frame. Like there's a deadline, right? There's no ever expanding budget that can accommodate, I don't know, extra features. That you have to get it done by the conference date, otherwise shame and horror, right? But so we enjoy it, but it does also pay bills. So
cool. And yeah, wow.
Is there a lot of competition in the amazing puzzle electronics badge market?
Alvaro does one for DEF CON, so it isn't just this conference.
I'm not joking. I'm actually interested.
Yeah. That's a very good question. I feel like everyone is always watching other badge makers to see what features are being implemented, right? To see how much you have to up your game, right? With the advent of yet another badge.
Sorry for everyone after.
You've blown the curve.
So it does seem like there's a lot of competition between the people who are making unofficial badges for DEF CON and stuff like that. They do seem to like to one-up each other a little bit, which is cool. The way that I approach it, the only person that I have any competition against is just my friend Joe, because he's the originator of the idea of an electronic conference badge. And I had no intention of getting into this. And Joe did DEF CON for, 5 years or something like that. He did their badges. And he's a close friend of mine. And I didn't want him to ever get the impression that, I'm competing with him. So instead of competing with him, I just completely annihilated him. And yeah.
Is this Joe Grant?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
He's been on the show, so
yeah.
Now we're going to have him back and ask what his plan is to recover from annihilation.
He'd be like, I'll let Whisker take it. But there is a certain amount of competition in the market. But there's also some camaraderie because badges are a labor of love, right? So everybody understands the torture that comes with parts procurement and with making sure that your boards are fabbed correctly, with prototype iterations, with programming, and feature creep and things like that. So while we are competitive with each other, at the same time, we're like, oh man, I feel you, so.
Well, and it's a time thing. You can't be late, and there's no. I mean, while we're saying it would be fun to play with, these are for this conference. I mean, you don't really get to resell them later very much. You'd have to change it,
right?
If you wanted to make a puzzle. So it's a small run, and yet it needs to be very, very good.
Right. especially because you have these hackers or, these people essentially saying, well, this isn't as good as last year's badge, right?
No, you don't want that.
Right? So there is that too.
And we picked up some tricks doing all of the educational videos over the years that relate to this. So we used to do videos of our projects just for the sake of doing a video for our project. But eventually, after interacting with a lot of the folks in the sort of small run electronics community, everyone kept encouraging us to take little pieces of these projects that we were doing that made sense as useful products for others and just snip out the bits that were like that, turn that into a product, and then throw it up on Tindie or whatever and move on to the next project. That way, as you're doing these big, long-term things that are one-offs, you still get something at the end of the day that can continue on and move on and fuel the community and all these sorts of things. And I think we've been paying close attention to the next few badges that we've done after our first one and make sure that we pay close attention to anything like that in them that we can take out as good R&D tech that comes out of it.
Okay, so let's talk about your Tindie store. What do you have on there?
Tindie, we have a lot of our electronic kits, obviously, for mostly music applications at this point. So amplifiers, filters, like MIDI related kits or modules.
Oh no! Keep me away from here.
You don't like MIDI?
No,
he loves MIDI.
I'm just looking at the store and going, I'll take some of these.
So actually, Whisker, you should tell them about the Protosynth Midi then.
So Jason Todick had gotten a shipment of breadboards in for his store, and there was a manufacturing defect on them, and you couldn't quite fit ICs and stuff down into the breadboards. So he sent me 20 boxes of breadboards, and they were just sort of taking up space around here. And one day I was staring at them, and I pictured a synthesizer where the top section of the synthesizer was just breadboards, and you could build whatever circuit you wanted, and it's already hooked to a keyboard. So, it's just sort of grew from there. And then I realized later that a keyboard is a lot harder to play than just hooking it into Logic or some other MIDI sequencer. So we did the Protosynth Midi version. And, a nice hardwood case, all the breadboards are built in, the MIDI circuit's built in, some MIDI to CV stuff in there. For those of us who aren't just satisfied using off-the-shelf synthesizers, we want to build our own. It's for those guys and gals.
Yeah, so a lot of our modules on Tindie are breadboard friendly, so that you can use them with the Protosynth MIDI. And yeah, so those are some of our modules on there.
I know that MIDI is this language that instruments speak to computers, and then computers can replay the MIDI things so that it sounds the same. Long ago, when I was at Leapfrog, when we had to do music, we'd get it from the musical people in MIDI, and then I could play it on my toy through the MIDI synthesizer. I don't understand what Protosynth MIDI is. Given that understanding, can you explain more?
Sure. So most consumers saw MIDI from that point of view, where MIDI is a thing that my sound card supports.
Yeah.
And I have a MIDI file, and the sound card turns that into sounds I can hear. And that's kind of a user application of MIDI. It's not what MIDI is. MIDI is basically just a serial UART current loop at a very specific speed. And it's just a way of transmitting information back and forth. But of course, you can take that data stream and save it as a file, and then have an application parse that file and, generate some sounds out of it, like the Sound Blaster cards did back in the day. But yeah, that tech goes all the way back to 1982, I think, was the original MIDI spec. And the first big consumer implementation of it that most of us saw was the Sound Blaster cards and such.
Yeah, MIDI is one of these amazing things to me because I still use it in the studio for stuff and, for recording. And I can't believe I'm still using this protocol from 35 years ago that was future-proofed. I know there's been extensions and changes as time went on, but the fact that we're still using that and it still works just fine, it's just amazing.
The interesting part. A lot of people switch to like USB to MIDI or just MIDI over USB, whatnot. But in my studio, one thing that I like to use is like the Yamaha MIDI matrices, where you've got like 8 inputs and 8 outputs. Because I've got like whole credenzas of MIDI equipment. I need to control it all from one little cable coming from my, newfangled Logic Pro X system. So it's one cable to a box from the 80s that splits out to a bunch of computers and other weird stuff from the 80s. But it works better than any of the like USB plug-in MIDI boxes that are on the market today. And it's like, seriously, this spec is so old. Why can you not like support it well? I don't understand. Sorry.
No.
Studio nerds.
Addie and I will go away and get coffee. You and Chris have a good time. Okay, but you have lots of other kits. That one's actually kind of expensive, but you have some 20-ish and less kits that let people sort of get into electronics, but their feet in, and yet don't necessarily require understanding old protocols like MIDI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the best-selling kit of all time on our store is Addie's Amplify Me, which is just a through-hole, solder it up yourself, LM3D6 amplifier kit. And I would say that we have sold, at least 40 times many of those as anything else that we've done, because it's at that perfect entry level where pretty much anyone can pick it up, hook it up to a 9-volt battery and some speaker they ripped out of something. So props to Addie. She has totally won as the top seller here at our design studio.
Hardly. But it causes our development of kits to go towards the easy to use rather than for the hackers use. So when we first started, we were like, oh man, there's going to be tons of people who want to get their hands dirty and like figure out the nitty gritty of bytes and bits and how to do shift registers and things like that. Those actually haven't sold that well. And so we're like, well, we looked at Evil Mad Scientist Labs.
Yes.
And we're like, they are doing really well. Why is that? And part of it is because their kits, even though they are PCB, they have PCBs, they have parts, they're all complete. They're kind of a plug and play.
I think it's because she makes really good coffee.
Yeah, she does make very good coffee. But we have a story for that too.
Wow, if I drank that stuff every day, I'd do a good job too.
But their kits are all like you plug and play them, right? You have to put them together, but by the end of it, you don't need to think particularly hard to make them function, right? And so the same thing with the Amplify Me and the Candle Simulator. Those two are best sellers essentially. Once you do the quasi hard work of putting them together, they just work. And so I think as we continue making kits, like that's one of the things we think about is making it into a complete product rather than just a component of, I guess, a larger process.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Any of you are in the Valley, sort of area there, where EMSL has their sort of shop thing.
Sunnyvale.
Yeah, Sunnyvale, California. And if you're in the area and you get a chance to go visit them, do, because their shop is amazing and they're so friendly and awesome people.
They really are. Lenore and Wendell are great. But you were saying that the easier stuff, it makes sense to me that the easier stuff would sell better because there are so many more learners and people new to this and people who have skills in other areas but don't really know about hardware and want to have an easy win. Where the people who are experienced and would know how to use I don't know, let's pick on the Protosynth Midi, would know how to use that, would have at least a quarter of the skills to be able to build it themselves. And so they look at it and say, oh, well, should I build this, or should I use my amazing skills and just buy one because I clearly have an income? I totally see why kits that are finishable would sell better, because those are the kits I would buy.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, even as an engineer, I mean, you think, well, is it worth my time to redo it myself? Right. Or should I just buy it?
Yeah.
Because I know it'll work.
And that was the definite, motivation behind that PSM. I had to do that myself, and I know how long it took to actually do that kind of thing for myself. And I figured if I made it clear enough that it has a lot in it that you don't have to do yourself if you just buy it, then the people who are like me, who like building this sort of stuff, could skip that step and just get to making things on it, which might be good for some people, but not for me. I would not have bought one.
That's always the hard part about selling things is, okay, I would make one of these, but would I buy one of these?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm too cheap.
So the Amplify Me kit, did it come out of some other product? You were saying about how with the badges, you think about, well, could I kit this? Could I make this into a product?
Right.
Some subset. Was this one of those that it was something else and then it became a product?
Was that like a John Schuch suggestion for
John
you to
S.
learn how to do it?
Yeah. John S_AZ said, hey, I want an amplifier. And I'm like, well, okay. So actually that one was probably the simplest in terms of like inspiration. It was just one of our friends wanted it, so I made it for him. But I guess the closest kit that we have, quasi kit, that we have on Tindie that came from inspiration was probably actually my Heart Me. And the Heart Me is essentially a cardiac simulator, and it simulates 17 different cardiac rhythms. It shows the electrical pathways of these different rhythms.
Lincoln Lights.
Christopher's jaw is dropped. I wish you could see him as he
following
looks
along
on this.
as you talk about these things and
And
reading on them.
He's reading on the online, and he's just like, ha.
Yeah, it was actually the first electronics project that I really put myself into, because of course by day at that point I was a cardiovascular surgery nurse, and by night I was messing around with LEDs. And like I said before, I like LEDs to have information. And so I said, well, I could show essentially how electricity flows through the 4 chambers of the heart. And so I ended up doing that. And
Nerd.
So I did that, and it was actually for a competition that was hosted by Parallax, the company that does the propeller.
Right.
And
Micrometic?
Micrometic, yep.
Yeah.
And in that competition, so I had a rudimentary Heart Me, and what it did was it had an LCD which showed you what the rhythm was. It had audio, which lets you listen to what you would hear if you were listening to somebody with that heart rhythm. And it also had a solenoid that would pulse and would feel like what you would feel if you were palpating somebody's wrist with that rhythm.
This is amazing. It's a huge
awesome.
educational thing.
We're going to get this for your dad, right?
Sure.
Yeah, by all means. So the Heart Me, I've been working on version 2 for now, I don't know, 3 years or something like that, because, it's one of those parallel projects that I have. But eventually it'll be in a nice little container that has all of these elements to it. But
one thing Badge is good for is learning all about manufacturing and dealing with sourcing at volume, blah, blah. So,
and yes, it has been very educational, because if you just give somebody an ECG and you show them this cardiac simulator and say, okay, look at where these bumps and these valleys and dips and highs are happening. now can you tell why the ECG looks the way it does? So, and so I've taught a lot of my nursing coworkers about ECGs using that little lapel pin, essentially.
Gosh,
No,
I don't even know where to go from here. That is so cool.
Thanks.
Okay, you mentioned earlier videos that you do some videos of projects you work on, and you have a YouTube channel called Rabbit Hole.
Yes.
Tell us about the videos.
Sure. The Rabbit Hole is actually a hackerspace that we host
In your basement?
in our basement. Yep. So, this house is pretty big for the two of us, and the spiders were taking over the basement, and I hate spiders. So we said, well, why don't we get a bunch of hackers instead?
So you said, I know who eats spiders. Nerd friends.
Right. So every Friday we open it up from 6 to 2 in the morning, or 3 last night, and we do projects, and hang out with other fellow nerds. And so the videos are not a documentary, but it's a way for other people to see that they too can form their own, quote, hacker spaces if they want to, and like some of the projects that other people in the world are working on. And that getting from point A to point Z also has a lot of steps in between than just, what most projects end up showing, I guess.
Yes, I made this 20-minute video. It must have only taken me about 25 minutes to do the whole project.
Right. Not the years, right?
Yes.
that it's taken. So, in a lot of our other videos, what we'll show is pretty much try to show all of the steps at least once, to show that, yes, this is something you do have to go through in order to get to what you want your end project to be.
So did you make a bacon printer?
How did that get? So
you want to know how I know about this? Okay, so I went.
Who told you about this?
So the Toymakers have an IRC, which for those of you who are just too young to be listening to the show, that is an internet relay chat, and it's sort of like Slack that's open and anybody can join in poorly formatted Slack. Let's just go with poorly formatted Slack channel. And their IRC channel has many, many people, including many past guests like John Schuch and Joe Grand. And people hang out there all day and they chat. And I only logged in for a day and I got, about 30% of my normal work done because I was watching their incredibly entertaining chats to each other. But when I was there, I said, do you have any questions? What should I ask Addie and Whisker about? And they said I should call him Whiskers. So, hi, Whiskers. You can figure out who said that.
Me.
But they also suggested I ask about a bacon printer, and I have to admit that piqued my interest.
For the record, Whiskers is a possum finger puppet that lives in Connecticut.
Owned by our friend. So, there's this weird, really, really weird competition called the Deconstruction, and it's just really weird. But we decided to have to let our hackerspace be part of it, and so one year we decided to make. I don't even know what the theme was that year. I think it was like stuff to help improve the world or something like that. And we were chatting printer. And we're like, man, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a printer that could make bacon? And one of our hackerspace members said, yeah, we could totally do it. I just need a laser printer. And another guy's like, I've got a laser printer. And we're like, well, go back to your garage and get your laser printer.
You can laser print bacon?
So have you guys seen the meme, push button, receive bacon? Sort of a play off the iconography on the hand drying units in public restrooms.
Yeah.
So in a laser printer, there are essentially two rollers with Teflon on them, the same stuff that you have in your cooking pan. And the rollers can get up to 400 degrees. So technically, theoretically, yes, you can actually make a bacon printer. And so that's what we did. We took the bacon printer apart, attached a screwdriver motor, like a motorized screwdriver motor, to one of the rollers, and then heated up the rollers and put raw bacon through it, which was actually really disgusting.
Yes, I was about to say.
But I think if we had put it through a few passes, it probably would have worked.
So
okay.
First question, did anybody eat it? Second question, did it taste like toner?
Third question, if you wanted extra crispy, did you just print both sides?
Oh yeah, was this one of those printers that would flip it over?
Well, you'd probably have to flip it over yourself.
Oh, you're not selling me on this.
PC load bacon.
Yeah, so it wasn't amazing, but due to the magic of video editing, we made it look like delicious bacon came out.
I think if the cooking shows can get away with that, you're fine.
Yeah.
We did clean the rollers, so there wasn't any toner.
Yuck.
I would have left it.
Would you have tried it? You are welcome to come.
No, I'm a vegetarian. I would never have tried it. Oh. That's why I can discuss this with impunity. I have no skin in the game.
So yeah, no, I don't think anybody tried it because even after a few passes, it didn't.
It's not a very good plan in general.
Yeah, but but we had to try.
It did get into Popular Science magazine, I think.
It did. And it's apparently on one of the meme sites.
All the cool things we've done. What do we get in Popular Science for?
Yeah.
So that actually was another question from your chat group, which was, do you have a favorite project separate from projects that have been, quote, successful or popular? Do you have favorites that are your favorite, but maybe nobody else's?
I will cede to you first, Whisker.
We should credit Mark Microchip for that.
So in terms of projects that have been going on around here the last couple of years, I think the one that I enjoy the most is probably helping Beth build an electric violin. One of our hackerspace guys, Ron, showed up about, a year and a half ago, something like that?
3 years ago.
Well, with his daughter.
Oh, yeah.
And she looked around, saw there was a wood shop, saw that there was musical instruments that I'd made, and said, "Can we build an electric violin?" I'm like, well, we can try. And 2 years later, we have built an electric violin from scratch, from scrap wood laying around and designing preamp for the thing, et cetera, et cetera. List goes on. And that's been really fun, just having something to work on every week that it doesn't matter if it's on a deadline or how well it goes, other than Beth's going to hit me in the head with a hammer if it doesn't work well or something. Yeah, that's been fun.
And that's on the videos I saw. She played it. She plays quite competently too.
It sounds good for a piece of scrap cedar.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about a professional concert violinist is going to be playing some instrument that we built out of scrap wood that I found in the basement. It's fun.
That's the best. Then you have somebody who can show that it doesn't matter necessarily if your instrument is a Stradivarius. It's more about the person.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah, I think doing it out of scrapboard's the best way to show that practice and determination is more important than cold, hard cash. As long as you have access to their basement. Why are you
staring at me while you're saying all this? Sitting in this room surrounded by piles of music equipment.
And computers. Brand shiny new computers.
So the only takeaway I have from that is that it's not necessarily about a specific project. It's just that the older I get and the more projects I have under my belt, the more I seem to enjoy helping other people complete theirs. I get more out of those, I think. What about you, Addie? What's your...
I think mine is actually more of a concept, is that if I want to build it, I can do it. So a large reason we, around, like right now, as I'm sitting here, the desk that we have is we built, the sound panels on the walls we built, the bookshelves we built, the
Light
desks
fixtures.
we built, the flooring we put in ourselves. Like a lot of it is, if not almost all of it is DIY. And it's largely because I'm a cheap person and I'd rather do it myself than pay somebody else to do it or buy it. And so my favorite project is probably just myself, I guess, in that I'm more willing to try to first make things myself than to buy it, and that I'm okay with making mistakes. That might be too meta.
No, I may
like it.
quote, my favorite project is myself. That's kind of deep and kind of cool, and I like it.
Thanks.
I am, however, reminded of Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, who said people who buy things are suckers.
It depends to a certain
While
extent,
advocating
right?
making everything from scratch.
Yes. I would be remiss if I did not ask you about your podcast before I let you go. And
Sure.
I know that your podcast is no longer on the air and it's no longer easily accessible from podcast readers, but it is still available on a YouTube playlist. And really, it was an awesome podcast. Can you tell everybody about it?
Thanks. So we've had 3 podcasts.
Yeah.
First one was ZombieTech, and that was inspired by a book called Feed. It's actually part of a series.
Oh my God. I love the Mira Grant and Shannon McGuire books. Oh,
We
Feed
got to
was
talk to
so
her.
Awesome. Did you?
Yeah. Yes,
Oh.
we got to talk to Mira Grant.
On
And she is
ZombieTech.
and I was totally fangirling.
Oh, I
not
would.
gonna lie.
Oh, yes.
You should.
She's
yes,
fun.
she's an awesome, and she's got a machete collection at home.
Which
I mean,
she keeps under her bed, and she tells people
Where
that.
else would you keep it?
I certainly
Yeah.
would not. People I would not steal from. I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah.
anyway, but she would make a list of specific people.
yeah. So we were actually super inspired. We're like, man, that's like such a good idea. Being a podcaster or like having news from podcasts. And so we're like, well, wait, we should do that for engineers, but like frame it in the zombie apocalypse, right? So you're an engineer. You're supposed to be able to make things. You're supposed to create things. 1, what do you do now? And 2, how is that going to help us survive the zombie apocalypse? And so that's what the premise of ZombieTech was. And so we got to talk to a lot of engineers.
Convenient metaphor to allow people to share their insider knowledge on the super specific stuff that they do.
Right. And so we did that for a while. And then we also did 2 other educational podcasts, I guess. One was First Spin and the other First See, which was essentially where Whisker and our friend Roy Eltham, who's a programmer with, where is he at now? He was at Valve and Sony Online Entertainment, and he's currently at another gaming company. But essentially it was them teaching me how to program from complete scratch, to the point where I couldn't even get past like the pre-word in a programming manual because it was over my head.
Addie had literally never programmed in her life, and
Right.
she learned how to basically write really low-level microcontroller stuff, and now she's pretty good at it.
Well, I don't know about that, but I can make an LED blink in any case. So the First Spin and First See was me learning Spin, which is the higher level language for the propeller, and then C, of course, which the propeller can also use, but is obviously more universal than Spin. And the one that was obviously more fun, I guess, was ZombieTech. And these are, we still have all the files. It's just a matter of me having enough time to put them up on YouTube. So,
And that's related to why we had to stop doing them. We don't have enough time to do all of these things all simultaneously. It was going to kill us. So we had to pare back and pick what we wanted to focus on.
Prioritizing? That's very sensible. Okay, wait a minute. I'm looking on your YouTube channel and I see First Spin and I see ZombieTech. And then there's Patch Bay?
Yeah, Patch Bay is myself and a Canadian record producer, Shane, and it's just sort of two Midwestern chuckleheads who are into studio stuff, sort of catching up every week and talking about what we're doing, who we're working with, what kind of stuff we're doing in the studio. It's pretty fun if you're into that stuff. If not, it will be very boring.
I understand that. I know we have some listeners who don't do embedded software or any sort of thing like this, and I suspect they've checked out by now.
Shame on them.
No, it's kind of cool that people would listen to us when they have to tune out every time we say something like volatile or, I don't know, propeller, or whatever things we're randomly saying that mean other things. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway. Christopher, do you have any subjects we should especially cover again, or should we let Addie and Whisker go back to...
We should talk to...
fighting zombies.
We should talk to Whisker for another hour about MIDI and to Addie for another hour about cardiology.
Yeah. I like it.
But no, I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
All right, then I'm going to ask the two of you if you have any thoughts you'd like to leave us with. Addie, do you want to go first?
Sure. If you have a project, just take it a step at a time. Figure out, the very core of what you need and then what's needed to support that and build from there. And by the end of it, you will have a product that you can come onto embedded with.
And Whisker, what about you?
All right. So with a lot of the stuff I've done, it's been trying to focus on sharing information with others, connecting people together, building community, things like that. But these days I'm stuck kind of doing things just to make, profit, because I just need to do that for a while. So I hope that all of you out there will pick up the slack, put up more YouTube videos showing your projects, document them well. When someone is trying to figure out how to do something these days, the first thing they do is do an internet search. And if you're not posting information about your projects, that information can't be found. So all of you guys, gals out there on the cutting edge working on new stuff, please share what you're working on, because it really helps the people who are interested in getting in and don't necessarily have access to education. They can learn how to do this stuff even if they can't go to school.
Excellent. Our guests have been Addie and Whisker, the Toymakers. You can find them on various sites by taking all of the vowels out of Toymakers. Tymkrs.
We couldn't afford any vowels.
And we're not going to treat Y as a vowel today. Some days you do. Some days you don't. You can find Toymakers on Twitter, Tindie, YouTube, and of course their own Toymakers.com, where their IRC lives, along with links to all of their other stuff. Thank you so much for being with us.
Anytime. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. Fun.
Yeah.
And with respect to what Whisker said about sharing what you're doing, I have been posting on our blog about my little robotic arm and what I'm doing with machine learning, and there'll be more posts about that. And Svek and Andre will be back soon with their more technical programming posts. So check those out, please. It's kind of cool. I'm very excited about my arm and teaching it to do things. I would like to say thank you to the nice folks at the Toymakers IRC for some of the more amusing questions. And of course, thank you to Christopher for producing and co-hosting. Finally, thank you for listening. My closing thought today is from Disney's Toy Story because it seemed so appropriate. How dare you open a spaceman's helmet on an uncharted planet? My eyeballs could have been sucked from their sockets. Embedded is an independently produced radio show that focuses on the many aspects of engineering. It is a production of Logical Elegance, an embedded software consulting company in California. If there are advertisements in the show, we did not put them there and do not receive money from them. At this time, our sponsors are Logical Elegance and listeners like you.